Washington, D.C. had a strange electricity in the air, one that journalists could feel before they even reached their offices. The chatter in political circles had been slowly building for weeks, but it finally exploded into a full-scale national conversation the moment former Vice President Mike Pence gave an unexpected exclusive interview on a primetime Sunday show. The topic? His concerns about the direction of the Republican Party, and most strikingly, about President Donald Trump's expected run for a second consecutive term in 2028. Pence had always carried a reputation for being calm, disciplined, and measured, but this interview had none of that familiar gentleness. His tone was sharp, almost brittle. His eyes carried a weight that seemed part frustration, part calculation, and across the country, televisions flickered with his words. "I believe the Republican Party must return to its principles, not personalities," Pence said, "and I don't think another Donald Trump run in 2028 aligns with that sacred responsibility." The statement detonated online. Hashtag Pence turns on Trump, hashtag 2028 shockwave, hashtag Vance responds. Cable news seized it like an eagle spotting its prey. Commentators debated his motives, his timing, and most of all the likelihood that this controversial moment was Pence's first step toward announcing his own 2028 presidential bid. Inside the West Wing, however, reaction was far less philosophical. President Trump, seated in the Oval Office with a stack of economic reports, lifted his eyebrows when an aide handed him a tablet replaying the clip. He watched it silently, not angrily, not even surprised, just studying it the way a seasoned fighter listens to an opponent's pre-fight speech. Vice President JD Vance wasn't as restrained. He walked into the room mid-clip, holding a folder from a meeting with governors. "Sir," he said, "did he really say that?" Trump nodded once. Vance's jaw tightened. "Then he's forcing a response." Trump chuckled. "He's forcing attention. There's a difference." But Vance didn't smile. The Ohio senator turned vice president had built his career on directness, clarity, and a certain blunt Appalachian honesty, and watching Pence discredit the sitting president on national television clearly hit a nerve. The press was already hungry for the White House reaction. They assembled outside under a chill November sky, waiting for someone, anyone, to step up to the microphones. They didn't expect it would be JD Vance himself. The vice president walked out calmly but firmly, sleeves rolled up, not bothering with a coat despite the wind. His expression held no anger, only a sharp, cutting clarity. A reporter shouted the first question. "Mr. Vice President, do you have a response to Pence's comments?" Vance nodded once. Yes, one. The crowd fell silent. Cameras zoomed in. Microphones leaned forward. Vance looked straight ahead, eyes like steel cutting through fog. Some people spend their whole career standing next to greatness and still never learn from it. The line sliced through the air with surgical precision. Gasps radiated across the press corps. Reporters immediately began typing feverishly. Producers yelled into earpieces. Social media erupted as if a digital earthquake had struck. Within seconds, hashtag one line from Vance, hashtag Pence regrets everything, hashtag Trump Vance 2028, hashtag political earthquake. News anchors replayed the line again and again as if it were the punchline of the century. But while the public was shocked, Mike Pence was furious. He was backstage at another event preparing to speak when his phone buzzed with a dozen messages showing Vance's clip. His face went pale first, then red. "This is exactly why the party needs new leadership," he muttered under his breath. His aides exchanged uneasy looks. Pence wasn't merely annoyed, he felt betrayed by a man who once praised him publicly. The 2028 path he had envisioned so carefully suddenly looked much more dangerous, because JD Vance hadn't just responded, he had set the tone. He had drawn the battle lines. And America was now watching one of the most explosive...
The invitation read like the bait it was. National Unity Town Hall, live on Prime Network. Moderators billed it as a bipartisan conversation about the future of the Republican Party. In truth, it had already been scheduled into the calendars of every major player because once the Pence-Vance-Trump triangle sparked, the country wanted to watch the flames. Mike Pence arrived first wearing a navy suit, a tie the color of a late summer sky. He walked with a purposeful stride that suggested he meant to take the moral high ground. Reporters asked if this was a 2028 announcement. He deflected with practiced humility. His team had prepared him for a day of appeal to older religious conservatives, a reminder that policy must be anchored by principle. President Trump arrived next, flashing the same grin that had powered rallies for years. He went straight to the camera, delivering a short, combative greeting to supporters online, and a sharper, more controlled smile to the national audience. He had spent the morning watching clips from the Pence interview and the Vance response, noting the media's hunger for drama. If the night became a spectacle, he had no intention of losing control of the narrative. JD Vance came last. He moved differently than the other two, not the polished ex-vice president turned candidate cadence of Pence, nor the showman swagger of Trump. He carried carried an economy of motion and words like a man who had learned early to save force for the exact moment it would matter. His handlers had a single instruction: keep JD centered. Let him define the stakes. When the moderator opened the debate with a clipped nod, the live audience hushed. Cameras rotated. Millions watched. Pence spoke first. It was a speech polished in prayer rooms and policy sessions alike. Tonight, I stand for the idea that our party should not be tethered to one man's personal brand. We need leadership that honors the Constitution, that rebuilds trust, and that refuses to make our politics a personality cult. Pence's words landed with the thud of a gavel in some quarters and the whisper of a warning in others. He was playing to the conscience of the party, to voters tired of personality-driven chaos. Trump listened, jaw set, eyes narrowing, but not flaring. When his turn came, he opened with a grin and then slid into policy. He praised economic numbers, accused unnamed elites of overreaching, and spoke of his plans for 2028 as if they were a page already turned in his calendar. You know, Mike, everyone loves a comeback story, but history remembers winners. He gave Pence a nod that had the faintest edge of condescension. That was the opening Vance had been waiting for. He rose from his seat with a deliberate slowness. The room leaned in. History remembers winners, he echoed, but history also remembers those who choose the right fight at the right time. It remembers those who put country over ego, principle over personal vendetta. There was an audible murmur. Pence's shoulders.
For 48 hours after the town hall, America existed in a state of political whiplash. The exchanges between Mike Pence, JD Vance, and President Trump replayed nonstop across every major network. Radio hosts dissected every pause, every eyebrow twitch, every tonal shift. Political podcasters uploaded analysis episodes quicker than their microphones could cool. But one sentiment dominated. JD Vance had fundamentally changed the trajectory of the conversation. And Mike Pence knew it. He sat at his home office the following morning, blinds half open, letting a dull Indiana sun paint diagonal stripes across the floor. He had declined every interview request. He had canceled meetings with donors. He refused to check social media, though his aides insisted he needed to seize the narrative. Instead, Pence was reading a printed transcript of the debate, every line, every word, every moment where Vance's calm composure contrasted with his own agitation. The line that haunted him most was not the viral one, not the greatness remark everyone quoted, printed, and memified. It was the quieter one, the scalpel, not the hammer. Principle isn't a shield for bitterness. Speaking out of wounded pride is not the same as speaking out of conscience. Pence closed the folder. He felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. Had it come across that way? Had his moral argument accidentally revealed something deeper, something political, something personal? His wife, Karen, gently entered the room. "You're thinking too much, Mike," she said in a calm voice. He sighed. "Am I, or am I finally seeing the way they see me?" She placed a hand on your shoulder. "Principle always costs. Sometimes it costs popularity." Pence nodded, but the answer didn't fully settle him. Across the country at the White House, JD Vance was in a war room meeting with strategists, polling experts, and communication staff. Charts glowed on screens, graphs climbed and dipped. Someone projected the latest national sentiment numbers. A young pollster pointed to a column of data. "This is the biggest shift," she said. Among undecided Republicans, Vance came across as honest and measured. Pence dropped significantly on the steadfast metric. Another staffer added, "Voters think you exposed him. They think you saw through him." Vance remained quiet, fingers interlaced as he studied the charts. He wasn't celebrating. He wasn't even smirking. He looked thoughtful, almost concerned.
3 days after the town hall, America was still buzzing, and Mike Pence knew he had no choice anymore. His advisors' warnings, donors' worries, and media narratives hovered like a tightening noose. The longer he waited, the more the story calcified. Pence bitter, Vance principled, Trump inevitable. So, Pence scheduled a major national address, a speech meant to reclaim his identity, his narrative, and possibly his candidacy. The venue was the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, a symbolic battlefield chosen with purpose, a place that represented conservative ideals Pence believed he championed better than Trump or Vance ever could, a place where he hoped to remind America that character wasn't weakness and loyalty wasn't servitude. The auditorium was full, cameras lined up, lights dimmed. Pence stepped onto the stage. He looked older than he had a week earlier. He began calmly. "My friends, this moment is not about conflict. It is about clarity." He spoke about his service, about his faith, about the Constitution. He referenced the Trump years with measured grace, but pointed critiques. Then he addressed the elephant in the room. "There are some," he said, "who suggest my concerns come from bitterness and not from principle. Let me be clear. I am not driven by resentment. I am driven by duty. A duty to speak when silence becomes complicity." The audience gave restrained applause. It wasn't thunderous. It wasn't electric.
It was respectful. Pence continued, building momentum until the line that would dominate headlines. If speaking truth makes me the villain in this story, then so be it. I will not bow to a movement that replaces conviction with charisma. The room reacted with gasps and mixed applause. Within seconds, the clip hit social media. Pundits sharpened their knives. Influencers crafted their takes. Donors took notes. But in Washington, JD Vance watched the speech with an expression that was neither anger nor triumph, just a kind of deep, steady reflection. His phone buzzed nonstop. JD, respond immediately. JD, he took a shot directly at you. JD, this is your moment. But JD stood up, hands in his pockets, staring silently at the screen. This isn't the moment, he muttered. 2 hours later, though, the moment came to him. Pence, fresh from his speech, appeared on the America at Night interview, ready to reinforce his message. The host wasted no time. Mr. Pence, JD Vance is being praised as the future of the movement. What do you say to those who believe he exposed your motivations last week? Pence let out a breath. It's unfortunate, but I won't engage in personal attacks. I will leave the insults and political theater to others. It was subtle, but it was enough. The host announced that JD Vance had agreed to join the show briefly via a remote connection. Pence's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected this. Vance appeared on screen, calm as ever. Vice President Pence, I listened to your speech carefully, and I want to respond with respect.